All right, all right, all right, all right, all right. I'm trying to simulclass tonight. This is Emunah Y'srael. Welcome back, YouTube. Welcome back, Facebook. We are going to be doing, I thought I just told them as soon as I start. So basically, welcome back. I jumped into it, like I said, all this heavy research, all this information, and I said I wanted to share with you a little bit of lightheartedness, and why not read the book that I've been sharing for some time now on Amazon. It is a novella. It's called Island Love. I actually started it yesterday, so if you're on Facebook, you're gonna have to check it back out. Stephen Mikhail, welcome to the discussion. This is a live reading of Island Love. So essentially catching you up on the first chapter, and you can definitely go to the YouTube and check out the first chapter. Angel, welcome to the discussion. Well, the reading. Angel, shout out to Angel. She's day one of the LED project. I haven't read those type of books in a while, but I'm going to read a book tonight. So essentially, in what happened in chapter one, we're being introduced to the main characters, Jackie, Devon, Mr. Carlton, right? Robert, welcome. And so Jackie's describing her relationship and how she almost didn't get married. What's going on? I'm going to read a little bit for you guys today. So I kind of actually read a little bit on YouTube through chapter 2, but I'm going to start chapter 2 from the beginning. Okay, so if you missed chapter 1 on Facebook, you're going to have to go back as well as YouTube. I'm going to pick up on chapter 2. And here we go. This is a novella. It has multiple parts, but as it stands right now, only one part is published, and it's the part that I'm actually going to read right now. It's funny, and so I'm going to have to read again from the top. Okay, chapter 2. The fact is, my husband inherited this house from the elder who owned it and counted him as a son. When Devon's family first migrated from the Caribbean, they moved to a home a few blocks away from a man named Mr. Carlton. He lived in this beautifully maintained single-family home. The lawn was always well manicured, and everyone admired it. The thing that really stuck out about Mr. Carlton was he lived alone. He never married and never had any children. Strange, huh? Mr. Carter was an unusual man, silent, tall, and mysterious. He retired from his job the same year that Devon moved to America. Actually, he was forced to retire from his job as a senior maintenance manager because they said he was too old to have around anymore. That job meant a lot to him. Devon says he never got over it, which probably explains why on most days you could find him sweeping and cleaning even when the place was already clean. Other than Mr. Carlton's love affair with cleanliness, the only thing he loved to do more was people watch. Around noon every day after his mid-morning nap, you could find him in his favorite chair, peering through the kitchen window, watching the world pass by. For those who just joined us, I am reading a novella that I wrote, and so here we are. As he aged, he lost his mobility, and one of the neighborhood boys, Devon, always volunteered to help him out before and after school. He would run his errands and do his shopping, basically whatever the elder needed. Devon's parents wondered what he was doing at the old man's house all the time, but never stopped him from going. Hello, Tina, how are you? Be careful. You never know. You never can trust people. Him too quiet, his mother warned. The neighborhood women would whisper and talk about Mr. Carlton all the time. What was wrong with him? Why he never got married? They couldn't figure him out. Even in his golden years, it was obvious that Mr. Carlton, here we go, was a handsome man. He still had all his teeth and a head full of jet black curly hair. He made for an intriguing character, and neighborhood women busied themselves weaving all manner of tales about him. One story goes that some years ago, when Mr. Carlton was much younger, the women decided to send in a decoy to test him out. Miss Mavis Fields volunteered because secretly she thought he was handsome and wanted any excuse to get closer to him. So one day she got dressed up, sweet up herself with perfume. Each of the ladies watched her not so discreetly from their front porch as Miss Mavis made her way over to Mr. Carlton's front door and rang the bell. Ding dong. When he finally answered, she introduced herself. Hey, Shaul, you would enjoy this. This is a Carib-American coming-of-age love story, so enjoy. Hey, Mr. Carlton, I'm Sister Mavis. I heard a lot about you. Yeah, he answered disinterestedly. I'm new to the neighborhood and wanted to meet all my neighbors. she continued, not quite ready to give her permission. Nice to meet you and thanks for coming. His response was lackluster at best. Oh, let me do that again. Nice to meet you. Thanks for coming. His response was lackluster at best. Aren't you going to invite me in for a drink or something? She inquired coyly. In where? He retorted. Madam, I don't know you. You could be a mad woman for all I know. But, before she could convince him otherwise, he slammed the door loudly in her face. Bam! The ladies who were watching in suspense suddenly erupted in fits of laughter at Miss Mavis' epic fail with Mr. Carlton. Let me know. Welcome to the discussion. Devon seemed to be the only person who he allowed to get close to him. He became like a grandson he never had, and Mr. Carlton was genuinely grateful to Devon for all his help. He lived at 198 Newhall Avenue, which was located at one of the better and more beautiful areas in New York City. Unfortunately, 2 weeks after Devon graduated from college, Mr. Carlton died, and with no one else to trust, he had asked Devon to ensure all his burial wishes were carried out. He was a meticulous man, and he had already finalized all his burial needs. Even though his neighbors never had an opportunity to get close to him, many long-term associates came to the funeral. Some out of concern and some out of curiosity, eager to find out what would become of the dead left. In Patois, dead left is a Caribbean term referring to any inheritance or articles that the deceased may have willed to the family, friends, etc. The funeral was quiet and uneventful. The service had a full house, but no family members showed. The following week, Devon received a certified letter in the mail, summoning him to the office of Attorney Basil Thompson. Devon was frightened out of his wits. He racked his brain for any high school indiscretion he might have gotten into, but he had never been in any real trouble. Maybe the letter was meant for his cousin, Trevor, who still used Devon's house as his official address, even though he rarely came home from running the streets anymore. I remember that phone call. The sky had darkened and it was set to rain all day. Around 3 p.m., the afternoon thunder and lightning began to roll. Jackie, a letter came here for me, from a lawyer, his voice overflowing with concern. A lawyer, I exclaimed. Jackie, get off the phone, my mother bellowed. You know, sit thunder and lightning. I can't stay long, so talk quick. What did you do? I questioned him. He sounded upset, so I suggested that I accompany him to the lawyer's office. Devon agreed and came by my parents' house the next day to pick me up. Together, we arrived at Esquire Basil Thompson's office at noon sharp. Is it still frozen on the Facebook side? Press 1 or 2 if it's still frozen. Let me know if it's still frozen. It is funny how my parents have changed since I graduated from college. Only in my wildest dreams could man come and pick me up before now. Anywho, as soon as we arrived at Mr. Thompson's office, we were greeted by his receptionist. Is Mr. Thompson in? Devon asked. Is who you? She asked while eyeing us clearly unimpressed. Is who me? I'm here to see Mr. Thompson. Is he in? Devon answered, equally unimpressed with her lackluster professionalism. No need to get snappy, sir, she replied. Him in at the back, pointing her finger towards the slightly ajar door off to the side. Her candy red nails sailed through the air. They curved like claws, and at the ends, which always left me wondering how women with long nails cook, clean, or even wipe themselves safely. My red carpet rundown of Rita is the receptionist who makes me laugh every time, was cut short by the sound of Devon's voice. Can you get him or at least call him for us? Devon asked, still expecting some kind of formality from her. Just go ahead, she responded, waving us off. As we approached the door, we heard what sounded like Mr. Thompson laughing and whispering into the phone. No worry, my wife will never know. I will call you later. Then there was a lip-smacking sound, followed by more whispering. Devon and I looked at one another. We shrugged our shoulders and decided we should knock on 3. 1, 2, 3. The door whined as it slowly opened wider. Clank! The receiver crashed loudly as Mr. Thompson abruptly slammed it down. We must have startled him because we could hear the rustling of papers as he clumsily shuffled through the documents, thrown all over his desk. He grabbed one at random and began staring at it with exaggerated concentration. Who is it? He called from behind the desk. I'm Devon Clark, and this is my fiancée, Jackie. We have a 12 o'clock appointment, Devon responded. I felt annoyed as Devon gave our introduction, announced his schedule to the lawyer. Wasn't this something that the secretary should be doing? Yes, yes, come in. His tone was professional, if forced. We stepped through the door together, but I stopped shortly, halted mid-stride by a rancid smell. What is that smell? I had to stop myself from curling my lip in disgust. What have we stepped into? Devon nudged me and I stepped inside instantly, surveying the cramped office. I began to take inventory. One dated green shag carpet lined the floor. Layers of dust blanketed the furnishings. Striped lime green velvet curtains blocking any hope of fresh air from coming in the windows. The fluorescent light bulbs flickered while making the most annoying buzzing sound. At any moment now, Mr. Lawyer Man would be left in the dark. Let me know if you guys can still hear me on Facebook. Whenever someone stood out to me, it was inevitable that I would rename them. Sometimes the nicknames would accurately reflect some aspect about that person, and sometimes it would be a feisty play on words. There was nothing about this man or this place that said lawyer. The garbage can beside his desk was overflowing with crumpled papers and what appeared to be scraps of 3-day-old chow mein. I felt myself gasping for air as I desperately scanned the room for some hidden window, but the possibility of fresh air and light could seep in, but there was no such thing. The tightening grip of Devon's hand in mine jarred me away from my health inspection. I refocused my attention back to our host and the reason for our visit today. Have a seat and relax, he motioned. You have got to be kidding me. For those who just joined us, this is Emunah Y'srael, and I am reading Island Love, a coming-of-age tale. It is a novella, a part of a 4-part series, and this is the first part that is, I feel in the reading mood, y'all, so I'm reading to you guys some of the madness that happens all up here in the dome, that in order to cope with the world, you have to write, right? So this is some of my writings for those who have not heard it before. This is Island Love. It's funny to me, man. Anywho, okay, you got me. I can be a bit scornful in dirty places. I did not want to sit, and Devon knew it. Blame me, my upbringing. But me and dirt were never friends. And the way those chairs looked, there was a very possibility that I could catch something just from sitting down. Devon sensed my apprehension and nudged me to sit. I obliged, perching on my behind at the very edge of the seat. My heart was palpitating and skipping several beats as I wondered what this was all about. My palms began to sweat, which was an annoying somatic reaction that happened whenever I became nervous. The handle of the chair that I grabbed to keep my balance was covered with moisture. I looked over at Devon to find him twitching his left foot and cracking his knuckles. Why would a lawyer want to see Devon? Finally, Mr. Thompson broke the silence. Do you know why you're here? I shook my head and Devon answered, no. Well, it's about Mr. Carlton. At the mention of Mr. Carlton, Devon let out a laborious and sorrowful sigh. What was the lawyer driving at? I was growing impatient, but had no choice but to wait. Mr. Carlton? He died a few weeks ago, Devon lamented. He was still mourning the loss of his elder and friend and expressed that he learned so much from him. Mr. Carlton was like a grandfather. It's a story, sis. Island Love. Looking at the experience of many people who have migrated to America. It's fictional. There's some real elements of it, but it's fictional. And looking at the elements of island people, South American people, but island people coming to the Americas and looking at the American experience from their eyes in a love story of young adults, right? Patience is virtue, Jackie, I reminded myself silently. The lawyer nodded, then stood up and walked a few paces over to a safe in the corner that was practically buried between a stack of loose papers and folders on top of the metal file cabinet it rested on. We watched as he lazily shuffled all the folders from one side to the other. Did this man know we were coming? Didn't he call us? I mumbled to no one in particular. I wasn't sure how much longer I could hold my breath without passing out. The lawyer, this one is funny, help me. The lawyer stopped suddenly and our attention was drawn into his direction. He started speaking aloud. I'm sorry, Mr. Thompson. Are you talking to us? Devon asked. No, no, no. I'm just trying to remember the code. He muttered as he leaned against the wall and stared at the safe. So this dude is at the safe. He called him into the office. He's a mess, man. Basil Thompson is a hot mess, yo. I became increasingly annoyed and unwittingly used my tongue to kiss the back of my front teeth. The man was as aggravating and unprofessional as his receptionist. Through my peripheral vision, I could see Devon drifting off. I tried to discreetly get his attention, but he never looked my way. Meanwhile, back at the safe, Mr. Lawyer Man was still finagling with the combination. With each moment that passed, I wanted to scream. Come on, man, didn't you know we were coming? Didn't you know we were coming? Sorry. Unprofessionalism of any sort has always been a major pet peeve of mine. And this lawyer's office was my all-time #1 worst experience to date. This guy was even worse than the woman at the patty shop by the college who got a nasty attitude because I said she sold me a bun-up 2-day-old patty. I'm sorry, yo. Yo. Oh, Father help me. I'm sorry, that was funny. So basically, Jackie is miserable as we So Devon is just chilling, right? And Jackie's noticing everything and she's running out of patience. So she says, this guy was even worse than the woman at the patty shop by the college who got a nasty attitude because I said she sold me a bun-up 2-day-old patty. Can you believe she tried to get me banned from her establishment? Finally, I heard the sweetest sound coming from the corner. Click, 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 pop. After much anticipation, the safe was open. Mr. Thompson retrieved a black envelope with a gold clasp from under a load of other important-looking documents. Must he do everything so slowly? I began to think. He was doing it to spite us. His actions seemed deliberate. I wanted to say, why do you keep asking questions? No, sorry, rewind. The lawyer strolled over to his desk and flung the envelope on the table before asking us in a condescending tone, do you know what this is? I wanted to say, why do you keep asking questions we obviously don't know the answer to? But instead, I let Devon speak, since I was just a guest accompanying him. The stuffy office space began to close in on me. I was hot, and the dust was irritating my sinuses. Mr. Thompson must have noticed me fidgeting because after some time of squirming in my seat, he finally popped the question. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm sorry. He finally popped the question. Would you both like something to drink? Even though the service so far was horrible, I couldn't hold out anymore. My throat was parched, and under much environmental duress, I agreed to a drink. Only moments after accepting the offer did I realize it may have been safer to wait. Rita, he shouted, come get our client some water for a Rona back. Clients? Who were his clients? And what did he mean by Rona back? No, I screamed silently. Not Rita, the receptionist from the front desk. I hope the water was bottled. Please let the water be bottled. That was a vain hope that lasted all of 2 seconds. To my dismay, the water came brimming to the top in a questionable glass from some unknown water source, Rona back. It was nerve-wracking to watch her It was nerve-wracking to watch her navigate her way from the door to where we were seated. At any moment, I expected the water would flood over on us. She found her way towards Devon's side, and in an effort to pass me the glass, she stretched over him. If I wasn't mistaken, her breast brushed his face. To make matters worse, when I asked her for a straw, she replied, "Yeah, lady, no problem." Then proceeded to reach under her left arm to retrieve 2 straws. I'm sorry. Yo, y'all know my mind is wild. I'm sorry, yo. I see Rita all in my mind. My apologies. So she to make matters worse, when I asked her for a straw, she replied, "Yeah, lady, no problem." Then proceeded to reach under her left arm to retrieve 2 straws with their wrappers already removed. Rita then performed yet another stretch and brush move over my fiance to hand them to me. I mustered up every ounce of home training to ignore these provocations and muttered through clenched teeth, "Thank you." My pleasure, ma'am, she replied sheepishly. This day was getting worse, and all I wanted by then was to get this meeting over with. I pretended to take a sip for appearance's sake and offered some to Devon, but he waved me off. He didn't want any either, it seemed. We both turned our attention to Mr. Thompson, letting him know it was all right to proceed. Well, he began while facing Devon, who is Mr. Carton to you? He is, was my neighbor, Devon answered. How long have you known him? Mr. Thompson pressed. What is it, interrogation? Since my family moved here some 12 years ago, Devon replied. Wait, is this some kind of police investigation? I blurted out, springing from my chair. Devon shot me a stern look and hinted for me to calm down. I sat back in my chair and began to rub my sweaty palms together. Will this man just get to the point? I was anxious, annoyed, and ready to get out of this dust bowl of an office. Mr. Thompson chuckled and continued his line of questioning. He wanted to know who I was and how long we have been engaged, etc. After much inquiry, even Devon began to grow weary. Sir, why are we here? Confirmation, my friend. Just need a bit of confirmation. I have to make sure we have the right person. The right person? For what? Devon replied. Well, Mr. Thompson responded, our neighbor, Mr. Carton, as you know, had no children. Sorry, rewind. Your neighbor, Mr. Carton, as you know, had no children, and you were like a grandson to him. He wrote a will and wanted me to read it to you after his passing. Devon had learned all about what had happened to Mr. Carton's family. He lost contact with them once he came to America. When he arrived in New York, he decided not to marry again and worked and lived his life in solitude. When Devon came along, the elder regretted not having someone to give his wealth to, and so in his will, he named my fiancé, Devon, as the beneficiary to his entire estate. Mr. Lawyer Man cleared his throat and with enough bass to make the walls tremble, began to read, Devon Clark, I, Elroy Carlton, bequeath to you my home at 198 Newhall Avenue, Rosedale, New York. This home is for you to take possession of and upkeep to the standard detail below, effective upon your marriage to your fiancée, Jackie Brown. Unbeknownst to me, Mr. Carlton and Devon had many conversations about our relationship over the years. He often warned Devon not to end up like him by thinking that money and success was more important than building a family, and encouraged him to invest in solid relationships. Although I knew virtually nothing about Mr. Carlton, apparently he knew a lot about me and was a guiding influence for many choices that Devon made over the years. Devon and I looked at each other, slack-jawed, like, what? But Mr. Thompson was oblivious to our amazement and determined to continue reading. He effectively interrupted our sidebar moment. Shall I go on? He asked, barely hiding his disapproval at our apparent lack of attention. The lawyer huffed, then assumed an official air that really didn't suit him as he continued reading. Also, there are monies that will be dispersed at 1-year intervals, which you are to use to maintain the unit and pay taxes. In the interim, you are to start your career and work your way up so that you will understand the value of earning $1 for yourself. I have included an engagement gift to help towards the expenses of planning your wedding. I would have loved to see that day in person, but since I cannot, please accept this gift in advance. So for those who just joined us and wonder what I'm reading, we're knee deep into chapter 2, okay? And we're getting the backstory of how they inherited the house at I forgot the address, at Newhall Avenue, okay? And this is a young couple, and you just got to stick with the story. So we're going to continue. So they're at the old lawyer office, the nasty, dirty, stinky lawyer office, getting this information that they didn't know that he was going to be the beneficiary. The first disbursement concerning the house will be given after you move in. The home will have no furniture. You must start from scratch, filling it with love. After remaining happily married for 10 years, you will receive a lump sum of $100,000, at which time you can move on, rent out, but never sell the property. I nearly fell off the desk. I nearly fell over the desk and came very close to knocking the nasty water all over the floor. Devon's face looked exactly like it did in the 6th grade when Miss Marguerite called on him to explain what he thought about the birds and the bees video she had just shown in the class. I tried to whisper his name, but he was non-responsive. Needless to say, we were both at loss for words. The last thing I remember hearing is Mr. Lawyer Man saying he would be the acting attorney over the will to ensure that the wishes of Mr. Carlton were carried out. The lawyer reached across his colored desk and handed Devon his card. You and I will become well acquainted over the next few years. Here are my contact numbers. Feel free to call me anytime. Devon reached for the card, and as he leaned forward to retrieve his wallet from his back pocket, the lawyer looked straight into my eyes and winked. That wink made my whole body shudder, and he got mentally filed away with his trashy office and receptionist. I couldn't wait to get out of there. We both rose from our chair and thanked him for the time. I will be in touch. Good day, sir and ma'am. Wait. I will be in touch. Good day, sir and ma'am, called Rita as she closed the door behind her. We could not wait to talk about what had just happened. And that is the end of chapter 2. Let me see how long I've been reading here to see whether or not I'm going to read chapter 3. How are you guys enjoying it thus far? Let me see what's going on here. Let me know how you're enjoying it thus far. I think I'm going to read. Okay, I think I'm going to read chapter 3. So that was chapter 2, and I'm going to read chapter 3. I got a little time today, y'all. So, and it's a little break, like I said, from the norm, because you don't have to, but I tend to like to use on my off time when you don't see me addressing things. I'm a creative person, so I like to address things. I like to crochet. I like to do art. I like to do a number of things that balances you, and comedy and jokes are one of the things I do. And so this story is funny to me, and I enjoyed writing it, and I enjoy reading it. So let's go. Chapter 3. I admit I am not the friendliest person, but that's not the reason that Rita and Mr. Lawyer Man rubbed me the wrong way. I'm sure that Devon dismissed my behavior that day to the picky personality he has grown accustomed to. But a woman's intuition is one thing that men mistakenly take too lightly. To his credit, though, Devon does know me better than most people and understand why I don't open up easily to new people. To be honest, I don't really understand the appeal in having a wide circle of friends. I learned early on that having a lot of friends was not going to be a big part of my life. Friends? You don't need friends. Look, see, I have brother and sister. They are good enough. This was my parents' mantra. I often wondered why they had such an aversion to the F word. It was almost as if some childhood experience of untrustworthy friends played over and over like a broken record in their heads. Every time the word was mentioned, they scowled. I wonder about who could give me better insight into why they were that way. I considered my grandparents. Angel says she listened to it on Kindle. I saw much better. Yeah, because I could give it the voices. I wondered about who could give me better insight into why they were that way. I considered my grandparents, but I reasoned that they would probably just repeat what seemed to be our family motto. The first time I realized this was going to be a problem, I was around 9. A little girl named Souljah befriended me. We sat beside one another in class, ate lunch together, and giggled while watching the boys during recess. Souljah was a thoughtful girl and very kind. Her mother was our local celebrity chef. She was known as Chef Sebastian. And she would often make surprise trips to our class, giving each of us one of her famous chocolate chip cookies. One day, Mrs. Sebastian brought us a special treat and gave everyone extra cookies to take home to their family. Souljah gave my bag to me with a card attached. What's going on, Pansy? I was curious about the pretty card. It was multicolored with confetti streamers and the words Brown family, neatly written by hand on the front. Give this to your parents when you get home, she said. I will, I replied. I was excited that day that I ran inside to meet my parents screaming, Mama, Dada, look. What's this? Mama asked, taking the bag and card that I handed her. I found that question strange since simply opening the package would reveal what it was. Open it, no dear, urged Dada. Mama struggled to open the envelope and neatly along the flap without tearing it. When she finally did, she removed the delicate-looking card and began shrieking, Invite? What kind of thing is this? It was a cordial invitation. Yo, Jamaicans are funny. No, y'all don't know. This is the trueness. Tell me this is the trueness. It was a colorful, cordial invitation to an opening celebration for the new cafe Soljah's family bought downtown. I could smell the cookies and my mouth salivated as I imagined waiting to be offered one. Then Mama opened the bag. Cookies? She barked in disgust. You don't need any cookies. I will hold on to these. I was, let's just say, not enjoying this moment. A tight knot formed in my throat. I opened my mouth to speak, but nothing came out. I tried again. This time, something came out, scratchy but audible. Mama, what about the invite? Can we go? Go where? She snapped. I always wondered why she repeated what you said, only to say it again louder. Maybe it was for dramatic effect. Mama was dramatic a lot. It looked as if she was taking a minute to deliberate. Then she turned to look at my father. Both of them had a disturbed expression on their faces. I watched them, looking first at my mother, then at my father, and stood there eager to hear the verdict. It would be great if we could go. My siblings would enjoy it, and I would get to visit my friend Souljah, who could say no to free cookies. Finally, after what felt like hours of silence, Mama delivered an unequivocal no. No. Did she say what I think she said? I was in disbelief. Immediately, tears began flowing from my eyes. Snot ran down my nose and I almost lost control. Why not, Mama, I cried. She's my friend. There it was. I said it, the dreaded F word. And boy, did it set them off that day. There is no doubt that my family contributed to my own antisocial people-watching behavior. I'm indeed still a work in progress. Shout out to everybody who just joined us right now. If you're wondering, I'm reading from Island Love, Chapter 3, an urban coming-of-age novella written by yours truly, Emunah Y'srael. I hope you're enjoying the story. We are on Chapter 3. Nothing really changed until I turned 16. Tanya and I met at soccer tryouts during the spring of that year. You see, even though I wasn't allowed to have a social life, my parents didn't mind me playing sports. As you can imagine, I tried out for every sport available: badminton, tennis, soccer, even cross-country track. Athletics was my only escape. For the first time in my life, I was finally allowed to have a friend. We were real friends, meaning she could call my house and occasionally I was allowed to visit hers. My house was, wow, should I describe it? Well, let me just say interesting. I'm the fifth child. My name was the one that they often forgot. Imagine being called the names of 4 children before they got to the one they really wanted. You would think that was crazy. You would think that was the crazy part about being the last child, until one day it turns out that maybe I wouldn't be the last child after all. After almost 2 decades, I was informed I was getting a little brother. Mama, are you pregnant at 58? I blurted out one day. She laughed a hearty and responded, no, Jackie. I was confused. They said we were getting a new brother, but Mama wasn't pregnant. Hold on, this thing is gonna. Okay, let me hurry up because I think this is gonna die. She wasn't pregnant. Oh, wait a minute, where am I at? Dada sat me down and explained that they were adopting a young boy who needed a loving home. Now that all of their own children were nearly grown, they decided to adopt a young boy in need, give him some structure and a safe place to live. Our house ran like a military base. Household chores were delegated so that every member of the household shared in the responsibility of his upkeep. There was never any excuse for the home to be untidy. The boys were in charge of sweeping the yard and taking out the trash every night, and the girls each took a week at the bathroom duty. When my sister left home, I picked up their dishwashing days, Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. The bathroom chores fell on me alone. Do you have any idea what it feels like to clean up after a house full of people? It seems that no matter how old your brothers get, they still can't seem to aim straight. Nothing makes you want to move out like cleaning toilets decorated with plea drops every week. I mean, how hard is it to lift and flush? I love my family, and yes, there's something great about having a big old mess of them, but I must confess, I often dreamt of a quiet home on the countryside where I could sleep late and live the simple yet quiet life. And that is the end of chapter 3. Join us next time. You're going to have to hit us up on the YouTube and join us next time for the reading of the next part, chapter 4, and see what happens with Jackie and Devon and the inheritance and all that good stuff. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I know this was a little bit unusual, but we like to shake it up around here, and so that we can illustrate what we mean about the positivity. There's a space and time where you concentrate on all the things that are going wrong, and then there's another space and time where you appreciate and you invest in the things that are going right, in the talents, in the abilities, in the music, in the artistic expressions of the soul, as long as they're positive. And within this story, I was able to weave some positive notes, and hopefully people can take those things away with them and learn, as well as laugh and enjoy yourself. So with that said, thank you for tuning in. Stay tuned for chapter 4 next time. All right. 1.